now Box is this public company, is this big thing. You guys have been on a roll, the stock price going up. I think the perception that people have in the public is really that of a strong kind of big company. But for the people that are, let's just sit down like this. For the people that kind of remember kind of the early days, because you've been doing this for like 11 years, there was a phase where like I and many people would be like, oh, Dropbox is just it's they're leading, Box is the other cousin, Aaron's too young, all that stuff was happening, and obviously I feel dumb having even thought that because you guys made something really,
We're not
really
offended,
big.
don't worry. There were many of you.
Yeah, and so that must have been a big thing, and so that difference between the inside narrative and the outside narrative, because I've seen it also go the other way around, where the public feels really good about you, but on the inside you feel really, really shitty about your own company.
Well, I think it's funny you say that. I think you always live in fear inside your own company.
Right.
And the best companies perform, I think, at their peak when they are always paranoid of survival and where the competition is going to come from and what the future is going to look like. So even when we've gotten the outside narrative right, we've been scared internally, and when we've got it wrong, we've been scared internally, because you're always sort of facing this pressure of how do we make sure that we don't get disrupted, how do we make sure we're moving faster, how do we make sure that we're building the absolute best product and the most innovative solution.
So was that really just simply a driver? Did you guys just internalize this kind of pressure you had from the outside of and just went like, no, we're going to prove them wrong, we're going to show them, or what's it like on the inside?
I think that you certainly can get annoyed by misunderstandings externally, particularly if it's a misunderstanding that you believe you're in control of. Well, does the market understand your strategy?
Right.
Do customers understand what really differentiates you? Right. Does the stock market understand what is different about your product from your competition? Those things are frustrating, because you have a good story, that you'd like to be able to tell the market something that is much more accurate, much more substantive, but rarely have we ever felt like we were trying to prove somebody wrong. Mm-hmm. I think what makes us so passionate about what we do and what gets us so energized is about delivering innovation and being able to build a very, very different kind of product than anyone else in this market. And we're not doing that to prove anybody wrong. Right. We're doing it because we want to build a meaningful company that can be long-standing and can deliver amazing value to our customers. So even at the moments where we were most misunderstood, I think our passion was still focused on, let's go build an amazing company, and at the right time people will understand why that's so different, why GE and Procter & Gamble and Eli Lilly and Goldman Sachs have chosen our platform over all the other ones that are out there.
Right, that makes sense. But that's something actually that you get a lot of credit even to this day inside of Scale, like at the offices, because people always kind of mention how you guys just deliver on creating good value and like focusing on that, right? And not really kind of getting distracted about, the press saying like, oh, the sexy consumer thing would be to do this, or like what we understand would be to do that. And so, how much, I feel like that's something like entrepreneurs really, really struggle with. And so how did you know, I guess? How did you know that you were building the right thing? Yeah. In short, how did you kind of manage to stay convinced of that?
I think this is where conviction and kind of passion is so important to building, any kind of business, and importantly a startup, because you're going up against so many different forces that want to prevent you from succeeding. Mm-hmm. Big incumbents, investors and their interest in investing in you, having to go out and recruit people. All of these are sort of these forces and this tension that often are limiting your ability to go succeed or go be able to build up your company. And so you have to have just an unbelievable amount of conviction about what you're building. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it is in many ways probably just delusional, that you just so deeply believe something that you know to be true. And in our case, the thing that we knew to be true was the future was going to be about the cloud.
Right.
The world was going to become more and more connected over time.
Right.
People and organizations were going to become far more collaborative. Businesses were going to become way more data-driven. And to do all of that, you were going to need modern platforms that enterprises ran off of.
Right.
And at the time when we were just scaling up, so 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, and so on, investors and the market and sometimes customers believed, well, eventually Microsoft will get there, eventually Oracle will get there, eventually EMC will get there. But for us, we believe that we had the right solution, we had the right product, we could be there first with the absolute best technology in the market. And we just deeply believe that. And when you believe in something so much and you can rally enough great people around that vision, you can actually ultimately make that become true. And so even when people said, well, isn't consumer sexier, or isn't there a better market to go after? To us, we were completely unfazed by that, because we deeply believed in what we were building, and nobody could convince us that it was the wrong strategy or the wrong path. Now, we could have been wrong. We're fortunate that we look back on the many decisions, and we're lucky that we made the right decisions. So we could be having this conversation with these little fluffy microphones with a very different set of lessons. But fortunately, we had such strong conviction about what we were building, and we happened to be right in this case. And I think that's the only lesson, honestly, there is if you're right, then having lots and lots of conviction, eventually you should be able to land on the right side of kind of what happens.
Right. And the other thing, that's part of that, and maybe you use that as kind of an indicator whether or not you were right in your conviction, is kind of like the focus on the metrics and on optimizing the right thing. And that's something you also get a lot of credit for in the halls of scale, of just like, hey, you went after correcting this and addressing that, and you focus on this, and a lot of the kind of unsexy, again, day-to-day, like running a business, building the business, getting it to the IPO.
Yeah.
Was that actually like a qualifying thing where you like use that as a bellwether to see like, okay, well, our conviction is correct, we're going in the right direction? Or do you feel like those are just kind of two parallel tracks that people have to follow?
And when you say the conviction based on the metrics, what do you mean?
Do the metrics kind of help you after a while, after a few quarters, you go and say like, oh, you know what, churn is getting better, so we're probably on the right thing here.
I think that I mean, 100%. There's only so much time that you can have sort of unverified conviction, right? And fortunately, and this is why I love the internet. It's why we chose the internet to build products for, as opposed to something else. You get very quick feedback loops, very quick verification that your strategy is correct and that you're on the right path in the internet. Even in enterprise software, because of how quickly customers can adopt your technology and your products. I don't know, what it would be like if you had conviction about building a nuclear power plant and you didn't get to find out for 20 years whether the efficiency was what you thought it would be. For us, we build software, we get into the market, and we get to hear nearly in real time, i.e., 3 or 6 months after making some of these bets, whether it's working out. And then you've got to adapt very quickly. You have to course correct, because all of our individual bets, not all of our individual bets are correct. We're wrong all the time on the incremental things. Sorry, it's going to get loud for a second. One of the benefits of our location is really easy commute. One of the negatives is when you're recording things, all you will hear is the Caltrain. But maybe it's a great advertisement for our great commuting benefits. But I think you got to have feedback loops, right? You got to be able to hear from customers that you're going down the right path. I don't think if we had, I would say there's only been a couple things in our strategy where we had to wait 2 or 3 years to find out if they worked. Most things are sort of 3 or 6 month increments. For the things where we had to wait 2 or 3 years, those are tough, because the organization always wants to sort of pull resources from that thing that you're betting on, but you have to see it through, because that's the only way that again, if you're right, it's that conviction that will have led you to actually getting the benefits of being right. Right.
And so what are some cases where maybe that didn't work out? Did you ever have a conviction that ended up being wrong and that wasn't like so quick to correct? Or did you guys feel like you got lucky and mostly kind of the breaks went your way?
I think that we've fortunately, knock on
this is metal,
knock on metal ceramic things. Hello. How you doing? Or come on by. We've got fun microphones. So we're fortunate that mostly we've never gotten like a fundamental bet wrong, but always you're iterating and you're optimizing the incremental bets.
Right.
So things like, we went into a market once in terms of a geography that just wasn't ready for our technology. The customer adoption of cloud solutions was just too early, and so we had to pull back from that market. And that meant that we spent a couple of years in a market building energy and hiring people that didn't end up working out. There's a bunch of those kind of things. Fortunately, on the grand scheme of the business, on the strategy, those tend to be fairly incremental and not sort of fundamental.
Right, and that's your thing, right? You gotta hope that most feedbacks work out, and the one that don't work out, you're able to kind of hedge and move past them.
In general, and this isn't particularly like a principle that we run off of, but in general, if we're not having those kinds of failures, we're not testing the limits of our strategy.
Right.
So I want to have those kinds of incremental failures, because that's the only way that you know if you've reached the sort of limit of what to do.
Of growth, and
The moment that 100% of everything you're betting on is working, you can guarantee that you're not doing enough, because there's always some delta between where you're at and what's possible. And until you start failing at things, you don't know that you've reached that limit.
Yeah. So what about stuff where it's the other way? How do you deal with like maybe the outside narrative being like really, really good, but then internally like things not looking so good and not that conviction kind of slipping away? Did you ever have to manage that?
I'm not sure we've ever had that for more than
You seem like a very energetic person, so maybe not. But yeah. Everybody has like off days, so.
Oh, internally?
Yeah, internally, yeah.
Well, it's not so much off days. I'm very fortunate where I don't think I've ever had sort of the burnout period.
Mm-hmm.
I know what it can feel like. I know entrepreneurs that have had it, and it's tough. It means that like you keep running into the same problem over and over and over again. You can't find a solution out. Maybe you can't find a way to get re-excited about something you're doing or passionate about it, or you just can't solve it. Mm-hmm. And that's happened again on incremental things, but I'm very fortunate that it just hasn't happened kind of overall. But there are periods, like you'll go a quarter where you just didn't like how you executed as a company, and you have to go look at that execution and do a postmortem and say, what was wrong? Were we not tied out on a certain strategy? Did we not have the right people in certain kind of roles? Did we not resource our strategy as effectively as we should have? And then hopefully, again, if you're a sort of regularly iterating kind of company, you'll just come back the next quarter with a set of solutions to that. And that sort of always is kind of happening in our organization. So there's absolutely on any given organization or any given department, some quarters off, some quarters on, and we're always just trying to constantly improve things.
Right, and that's kind of such a great underlying thing, right? Of this idea of like, we're going to make a bunch of bets, we're going to hope most of them work out, some of them are not going to work out, some of them are going to work great, and you got to have that fluidity, right, internally and with your team. Otherwise, you're never going to make it, you're never going to be able to conserve your energy and get there. So yeah, thanks a lot.
Hey, thank you very much. Cool, thanks for coming by Box. My box.